3 children. I own my own business.
Yeah,
I'm in charge of a lot of things.
Yeah.
So to come in here and not be in charge and be told what to do and how to do it, like, what a gift, you know? Because I was learning something every single time, getting back into my body as much as possible is what I wanted to do. I wasn't seeing weight fall off as fast as it had the last 2 times I had a baby. I cried 3 times before I started, just to be very clear with you. There were 3 moments where I was just like, what am I doing to myself? Why am I doing this?
You decided to open a business that required you to be in person, like, 18 months into the pandemic? Like, what? Tell me more about that.
Yeah, it was a really amazing story. I think the live stream dance world went hot and it was strong and fast, and we had hundreds of people logging into our classes. There was novelty. And then at some point, I got a little burned out with being online, but I knew I was never going to give it up because we had cultivated such a strong community, even virtually.
Yeah.
And to this day, I have folks logging in who are not even in the Bay Area, which is awesome.
Yeah. How did you do that?
How did we do that? I don't know.
Okay. It's just people enjoyed
I think
the
word of
classes
mouth.
and-
I think it's always word of mouth, you
Yeah.
know? Like, I have been very lucky to have basically no marketing budget for the dance classes I teach. It's definitely people coming and then telling people, which is, I think, the best way. Yeah. And on Solano, a lot of people just walk by, but the online one, and the person I'm thinking of in particular, my girl in the Pacific Northwest, she found out from a friend who lived in Oakland, just for one example. But so I started to teach outside at the park weekly. We would go to the park, we'd do pop-ups. There's a vacant lot. Do you know where they sell the Christmas trees?
Yeah, yeah.
Big Christmas tree energy. That was our safe space. Every month we'd be like, meet me at the Christmas tree lot. We need to dance.
So you would basically put out, like, on a Facebook group or something like that. We're going out to dance in the parking lot. Right. And people show up for that.
People showed up.
Huh.
Yeah. And then rewind, one of the pop-ups I taught before the pandemic was at a gym on Solano. Mm-hmm. Fast forward to a year into the pandemic, and that business owner was going to close that location.
Yeah.
Her primary location was in Oakland. She had simultaneously opened up a fully outdoor gym.
Yeah,
and she was
I know that place. Yeah.
Cassie.
Yeah.
So she was sending messages around, and I was one of her phone calls. She was like, do you know anyone who wants to move in? And I had coincidentally just the month before started researching commercial spaces to lease and experiment because I just got the bug. I was like, this is where I'm going. I want it. And there's no beautiful dance floor in town with a handcrafted sprung dance floor. So I'm going to make it.
Yeah. About half of the people that I knew that were running similar kind of businesses were closing businesses during that time.
Yeah.
Like, for you, it was just like the passion, or did you see an opportunity that wasn't there? I was just...
Definitely the passion. You know, like I said, logging into things at your computer was kind of filtering out what you did and didn't want to be doing.
Yeah.
And opportunity. If I didn't get that call, I don't know that I would have done it as quickly or at that time. And in the back of my mind, I was like, okay, this will be for 2022, 2023, when we're ready to go back in person.
Yeah.
So it did happen a lot faster than I anticipated.
Yeah.
And I imagine a lot of people who closed either had to because of the financial burden, or maybe the writing was on the wall and they were like, I'm ready to be out.
Yeah.
You know,
Yeah.
I think I saw a lot of that. So
Yeah. Yeah, there was like 2 waves. One was like the first couple of months where the people that wanted to quit were like, this is a great way to get out. And then the next one was like 18 months later when they just ran out of money.
Right.
And so it was like these waves of people that were sort of closing. Mm-hmm. And it's interesting because for us, what happened was we kind of made it through that. I'm looking back, I'm like,
I know. I want to hear everything. You guys were working on the parking lot?
Oh, yeah. 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 We had the parking lot. That's why you have those mats out there. And when we did come inside, if it was like raining or like smoke in the air, that was the year that there was all the smoke. So we'd be inside and we'd have these tape things where everyone would have their box and like everyone wearing masks and you have to like wipe everything down. Remember, like everyone thought you had to wipe things down. It was crazy. And we're doing all of that extra work and like losing money every month.
Yeah.
And looking back, it's like, why didn't we just shut down?
Because people needed it.
People did. Yeah.
People needed it.
Yeah. People appreciated it. But we found this sort of wave of people where it's like, okay, I'm ready to get out of the house. And also I've put on 25 pounds because I haven't done anything for the last year and a half.
Which we're still coming out of, honestly.
Yeah. That's what it's been the last few years.
But I have felt this here, and this is something you all have done really well, is the community aspect. We say at the studio, it's more than a workout. You know, people are coming to be with other people. And I bet during those really ridiculous years of the pandemic, that was a huge bright spot for people to look at a face in 3D. Oh, yeah. Even if it was 8 feet away from you.
Yeah. We did the Zoom classes for about 3 months.
Oh.
And yeah, I mean, we still, me and a couple other coaches still came into the gym, but we would run the classes from the gym.
Right.
And then there was this point where they said, okay, we're going to open back up. And we had planned to open up. And then a week later, they were like, no, we're not going to open. And we had already told everyone, like, we're opening on this date. And when they said we're not going to open, the coaches and I looked at each other. We're like, maybe we'll just ignore that second message. And we started asking the community, like, hey, would you guys be good if we just like opened? And we were like, yes, get me out of the house.
Yeah.
And we opened, a week or two early, and we said they just have to come and get us. And the truth is, like, almost everybody showed up.
Wow.
Because people were so desperate to get out, and it was kind of like, I mean, look, we're supposed to be healthy to avoid this kind of thing.
Yeah.
So, yeah.
I think also the equipment.
Yeah.
I don't have that at home.
You don't have that at home. Yeah, we lent out our equipment.
Right.
Yeah,
People could take stuff home.
Yeah,
cool.
Yeah. All right. So tell me what your life was like before you started with us, right? So, I remember you and I talking about this. So you've been running a dance studio, so you're kind of working out like all the time, right?
Yeah. The biggest difference was having another baby. And I remember just always kind of monitoring how things were shifting for myself in all of the ways, like physical movement, sleep, diet, like so much takeout, all of the things you do when you have a brand new baby and multiple people to take care of in a household. So just, some lazy habits, I would say, despite being very active in terms of dancing multiple times a week and always being on my feet.
Yeah. Yeah. So you were feeling like all of the other habits weren't working out. What was your goal when you started?
Yeah. I think, just really getting back into my body as much as possible is what I wanted to do. I wasn't seeing weight fall off as fast as it had the last 2 times I had a baby. And I was like talking to my husband about it. We have like a very open, healthy relationship and supporting each other in our fitness and all of that. And I was like, I'm doing everything exactly the same as when we had our first 2. Why isn't it working? I'm like watching the scale. I'm doing the math. By the time she turns 1, this isn't adding up. I was like, what's different? I'm not working in an office 9 to 5. In fact, I'm like my own boss at this point and on my feet way more during the day. Why isn't this? And he was like, well, you are 8 years old.
Yeah, I was going to say.
What do you mean?
Yeah, it changes a little bit.
Yeah. So he was the one who was just like, I mean, you need to shock your body. Your body knows all your tricks at this point. So, and that's when I went online and submitted a form here.
How'd you find us?
Originally, a good friend of mine had told me about you guys years ago. Yeah. And so it was planted in there. A lot of this was planted in there so long ago. It's pretty wild to reflect on just in thinking about talking to you today. I was like, wow, like all the pieces were being planted and I didn't know. So Emily Newfield told me about Hale years ago and spoke so highly of it and the coaches here. And maybe sometime a year ago, my mom and I she wanted to treat me to the olive bread at Grand Milan. And I was like, well, I'm finally in the shopping plaza. I'm never over here. I'm going to go peek in those windows. But that was even 6 months or more before so when my husband said it that night, I was like, oh, click, that's where I'm going to go.
Yeah. Oh, I love that. Yeah. That's actually a really common story. People are like, oh, I drove by 4 or 5 times before I actually drove into the parking lot.
Yeah.
Yeah. I see you guys working out outside and I think, that's not for me. And then, years go by and you still see the same people and you're like, I wonder what that is.
Yeah.
Yeah. So your goal when you got started was to kind of feel like you were back to being yourself again. You weren't bouncing back as quickly as you were before. Mm-hmm. And you kind of found us here. So was there a moment that said this, where it's like, this is it. I have to do something now. Was there something you noticed or?
I think honestly, if I'm being brutally honest, it's the numbers on the scale. Like I remember in September trying to be more mindful of what I was eating and watching that in October, November, December and being like, wow, this really isn't working.
Yeah.
And that night that Seth and I were talking, that was really the moment where I was like, okay, I got to go. Like if I'm going to do this, I'll have 3 months until my daughter turns 1 and let's see what happens in those 3 months.
Yeah. Yeah. That's so good. Tell me about your mentality going into this.
Good question. My mentality was really like super focused. And the fact that you call it like the no excuses challenge was really fitting because that was 100% how I was approaching it. I was like, I'm not wavering here.
Yeah.
I want to do this. I want to go all in and I want to like prove myself wrong.
Yeah.
I cried 3 times before I started, just to be very clear with you. There were 3 moments where I was just like, what am I doing to myself? Why am I doing this? It was only the second time in my life that I'd ever done like any sort of restrictive dieting. The first was about 5 years ago. I did Whole30 for fun, funsies.
When you say restrictive, you mean like cutting out certain foods?
Yeah.
Yeah.
Fully.
Yeah.
Cutting out certain foods. But at the same time, I was like ready for it because I knew I wasn't getting enough protein. I knew I wasn't doing enough weight-bearing exercises, like heavy weight-bearing exercises. And a lot of my friends are already starting perimenopause and are like, those are the 2 things that we as women need to be doing more is just more protein and keeping our muscle. Yeah.
I think what we notice here is because, a lot of our clients are kind of same age range, right? What we notice is that everyone has that sort of experience of like, I used to be able to do this and everything was fine. Mm-hmm. It's just like, I would just go run twice a week and I would be able to manage my weight or, whatever. And I don't know exactly when it happens. It's a little bit different for each person, but there is a point where it's like what you used to do doesn't work.
Yeah.
And if you're looking forward the next 10, 20, 30 years, there's a few things that you have to change to feel like you feel now. And it's kind of a shock. Mm-hmm. It's tough for people to kind of wrap their heads around that.
Yeah. I'm kind of having deja vu right now because you said that to me when we met online. Like you, and that was actually really reassuring to me because I was like, okay, I'm going to the right place if there's already an awareness about this. And this is something that people are actively working on because it's the first time that I'm coming to terms with the fact that I need to change it up in order to see results that I want to see.
Yeah. So tell me what that first day was like.
Oh my gosh. Well, I, of course, first day jitters. I was definitely feeling nervous.
Yeah.
Then walked in and looked around and lots of warm, smiling faces, met you, and then met Christina immediately. And loved her. We talked. It was a really thorough meeting. It kind of felt like a therapy session. I was like,
in the first meeting?
Yeah, I was like, am I telling you too much? I was just like, I'm here. This is me. And I'm going to tell you everything.
Yeah.
And then we did baseline. I went to my car after and I sat there for 30 minutes in your parking lot. I was like shaking a little bit. I kind of felt like I was going to throw up.
Yeah.
But yeah, I was I was a little freaked out, but
Yeah.
I was like, okay, clearly I need to be doing this if this is how I feel after 8 minutes of kicking my butt. 8 minutes and 32 seconds, I remember.
Yeah. That's so good. Now, this is a common story. And just to be clear, this is not the intention. It's not what we try to do.
Well, it's very
on the first-
effective, okay?
On the first one. But there is a certain point, with the type of training that we do that like, whether it happens on the first day or like week 6 or whatever, there's a certain point where you're like, I don't know, like that was really way harder than I thought it was going to be. And you have to kind of decide at that point, do I want to keep doing this or do I want to do something easier?
Yeah.
And for some people, it happens the first day. And in fact, it's for people like you that it happens the first day. People with like a little bit of like athletic background, because you walk into that workout thinking, this is like, look at this. This is only a few things. It's only going to take me a few minutes.
Yeah.
Right. And you get through it at the end. You're like, oh my God, that is not what I expected.
Yeah.
And then your question, the question you ask yourself is, do I want to show up for day 2? And the people we find make the biggest progress, they show up for day 2. And they're like, okay, this sucked. That means I need to do more of it.
Totally. Well, it's what I was talking about when I was deciding to come. It was like, I need to shock my body. I need to do something that it doesn't know.
Yeah.
And I don't mean shock in a negative way. I mean, like, it knows my routine. My body knows my routine. My body knows how to cruise control in a 60-minute cardio class at dance. Like, what else can I do at this point? And that was confirmation that it was something that kicked my ass.
Right. So you sat in the parking lot for a half hour. You said, okay, I'll be back again on Wednesday or whenever the next day was.
Yep.
When did you start to see a little bit of progress?
Those ropes, the rope climb. I remember the second time. So the first time we did rope climb, I couldn't do anything. And to be clear, I still can't. Okay. But I was like learning the mechanics of it. And my body was just like, nope, you don't have the strength to do this. And you have a lot to lift up right now. So I did the modification going from the floor to standing.
Yep.
And the next day I like felt muscles awake in my arms that hadn't been awake in a really long time.
Yeah.
And then fast forward maybe a month, we did them again and I got up one.
Yeah.
And that was a moment where I was like, oh, showing up consistently actually makes change.
That's only 1 month?
But it was only like one.
Yeah, but still, I mean, that's like 12, 13 sessions and you make that much progress in a month.
Yeah.
Yeah. Yeah, that's amazing.
Yeah. And then there was a Wednesday workout where I remember being like, I don't feel nauseous. And I feel like I'm kind of killing this right now. And even if it's just with my pink kettlebell, I am killing this workout right now. I'm in control. And I felt this high hit like towards the end of the workout where I was like, oh, this is how you get addicted.
Yeah. Yeah. Oh, I love that. I love that. So you had a bunch of struggles. I was looking through some of the notes.
Yeah. See, that first session, I tried to warn Christina.
Yeah. And like, this is the thing. This is really why I wanted to interview you today. I mean, you came in with a mentality like I'm going to do whatever it takes. And you kind of had every struggle that people can have throughout the first 8 weeks of being here. So tell me about some of the things you dealt with sleep, with injuries, with travel.
Mm-hmm. So sleep, I'm definitely not going to throw my baby under the bus. She might listen to this in 20 years. She's a great sleeper. We love you, Simran. You're amazing. Thank you. But there were definitely some nights where she'd be teething and I would get 5 hours of sleep in 1 hour chunks.
Yeah.
I have to say, if I had like 2 or more nights of that consecutively, I don't know if I would have been able to show up, but a key component of this formula has definitely been her being a good sleeper.
Yeah.
But I did notice the difference in my energy and my motivation in the days without sleep. And
that's the worst. Like you get over, you do the sleep training, the baby starts sleeping well, and then it's not so much a baby anymore. And then you hit teething or, you just like that. It's almost like worse that 1 or 2 nights a week they don't sleep than if you're expecting it every night.
Right, exactly. Yeah, because you move on with your life and your energy and your commitments and everything. And then it's a little bit of a regression.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So sleep was a challenge.
Sleep was a challenge, but not the biggest one, but definitely a consideration. And I made note of it in that first 30 day in the habit tracker because I wanted to look back and be like, how did that play into other progress points for me, like milestones?
Yeah.
But the injury one was definitely the worst for me. So, I think it was like week 3 that I ended up hurting my back. I had to go to New York for just like 36 hours. And on the way back, the flight was super delayed. I was tired. We finally boarded. And I was putting my bag in the overhead compartment and it kind of fell. And I like moved to catch it and boom, I felt something pull. Mm-hmm. And, I don't think my body was that like jacked up. Like I was not in pain or anything before that. So, but I think, of course, I'm putting my body through a lot in this first 30 days, especially. So it was kind of like a little on edge, plus a hotel bed, plus travel, plus airplanes, plus all the things.
Yeah.
And mindlessness, like I wasn't thinking in that moment, which was the scariest part to me because I was like, oh, again, this aging thing, like I can't just do whatever the heck I want to do. Like I have to even be mindful of how I'm putting luggage.
Yeah, we'll work on that part.
Okay, thank you. I'm not okay with that. I want to be able to do whatever I need
That's
to
why you're
do.
lifting weights. So yeah.
Yeah, so it pulled a little, but it was actually fine. And then I came back. It was like a Wednesday night that I got back. I taught my class Thursday morning. I came Friday. And that was I think we did a mile test, but I was on the bike. So, and I had also, I'm such a dummy, guys. I taught Thursday morning. I hiked to Indian Rock Friday morning. And then I came in here Friday afternoon. So I was not resting. I mean, I was fine. I wasn't pushing myself or going too much. Like that was my baseline of meeting all my goals, like getting my steps in every day and all of that. And I was making these hikes social. So I went with a friend and a plan that I didn't want to cancel. And then Saturday morning, because I had just been out of town, I did the early wake up with the baby. So I was like up alone with her before the rest of the house woke up. And I just like bent down to pick her up off the floor, but clearly wasn't warm or anything. And it pulled really hard.
You felt it.
I felt it. And I went on a walk with my mom later that morning because I was killing my walking goals. And I had to like pause every few blocks and like bend down, put my hands on my knees in order to take a deep breath. And it was hurting.
Yeah.
It was bad.
Yeah.
So that was definitely my biggest setback. And
that was like halfway through the program, the first 8 weeks. Yeah.
Not even halfway.
Yeah. That's rough.
It was bad.
Most people would have quit there. Why didn't you?
Well, I think at this point, the fact that being physical in my work, I still have a hard time calling it work. But like at dance, like because that's a commitment of mine 3 times a week, like non-negotiable, have to move through that. And I did already have good, what I like to call scaffolding in place, which I didn't have when I had my first child. But by the time I've had my third, like body workers, massage, therapy, like all of the scaffolding that everybody should have in their life. And I had postpartum depression after my second child without this scaffolding. So that's when I built it, and it has stayed in my life and isn't going to be going away. So I think that's a big reason why I didn't quit, because I was like, okay, well, let me move through this injury, put it behind me, and keep going. But there was probably a week where I didn't know what we were going to do, right? I saw you that week, and you were like, are you okay?
Yeah.
Where have you been? And I knew that I needed to prioritize like being able to hold my baby, because there were 2 days there where I was like just not lifting her.
Yeah.
And teaching my classes. But I don't know. I don't know if it's luck or what, but it pretty much resolved within a week, and it could have taken 4 to 6. So
yeah.
Just got pretty lucky there.
I don't know if it's luck.
Okay. Tell me, what is it?
I actually think that, and your situation, I don't know all the details of your situation, but I find that when people have these little injuries like back, knee, whatever, and provided they're not like catastrophic,
right.
A lot of times moving is what loosens them up, because, like with your back, it's like you pulled something and then everything gets tight. And it's your body saying like, hey, be really careful right now. We're protecting our spine, right? But by moving, you're sending the message to your body like, no, this is okay. I'm not going to die from this. And your body, your central nervous system starts to say, okay, let me loosen this up a little bit. And that's also what you get with the body work. Like, you get a masseuse and they work all the muscles around it so that it sort of loosens it up. And then by continuing to move, it continues to loosen it up. So when people have these little injuries and they go see a doctor, get an MRI, the MRI is negative, but the doctor says, don't do anything for 6 weeks.
Rest.
It's like, it's almost worse because now you're not moving. So you're sending the message to your body like, yes, let's stay stiff. Let's stay in pain. And it takes longer for you to recover, right? Now, if it was something serious, that would be a little bit different. But, everyone deals with little things like this. And part of it is that pain is just kind of feedback to, okay, there's something that you're doing. And you just named a whole bunch of things. We're not sleeping, I'm sleeping in a hotel bed, I'm tossing stuff around and, I'm not taking enough rest. There's something you're doing that we want you to slow down on. And you use that as feedback. You say, okay, great. I'm going to slow down on this. I'm going to work around it. I remember that week you were keeping the weights really light and avoiding certain things.
Yeah.
And then you're saying, okay, it's okay to start moving again.
Yep.
And I think this is actually a really important lesson for people because what's the alternative? That you stop doing stuff? At some point in your life, maybe, hopefully, when you're older, 60, 70, 80, you get one of those little tweaks and then you stop doing stuff and that will be the last time you do stuff. And it's like, if that's the way that you approach every time you have a little injury.
Totally.
You won't, at one point, you won't be able to run again.
Yeah.
You won't be able to lift things up again. And that's where the quality of your life really suffers. So this is something I tell my mom all the time. It's like she shows up here. She's in her 70s. She shows up here so that she can keep showing up here.
Yeah.
And she works around her stuff. And as a result, she's in better shape than anyone else her age that she knows.
Isn't that amazing? My mom taught herself how to swim in her 60s.
Yeah.
And she swims 3 times a week now and does other things, walking and some other weight stuff on Zoom with the trainer. And I love that for her. It's really amazing to see the difference it can have in just enjoying daily life and all the aches and pains that are going to come no matter what.
Yeah, exactly. So it's not luck.
Okay, maybe a little bit. Like you said, it wasn't a catastrophic injury because those can be devastating. But yeah. And back to that thing I said earlier about the seeds being planted, my body worker does CrossFit and has talked about it for years. So that was also in my subconscious. Like all these pieces were coming together.
Yeah.
So his philosophy is the same, which is like, keep moving.
Yeah, keep moving. Find other ways to work around it. Don't work specifically on that spot, but like keep yourself moving.
Yeah,
I love that. So, you mentioned that you made some changes to your nutrition. What did you do exactly?
So I did the 30-day no excuses challenge.
Which is what for people listening?
No sugar, no carbs, no dairy except Greek yogurt, which is my savior. Shout out to Greek yogurt. Just protein, some complex carbs, of course, like nuts, dried fruit, and vegetables.
So you could eat as much as you want, but it was like a list of things that you could eat.
Yeah. And for me, in order to do that, like I needed tips on meals to make, and not just like meal planning and recipes, like how do I put this together sustainably every day on top of all the other stuff I do in my day? Because it could be like another part-time job between the working out and planning ahead for nutrition. Like those are major time commitments to make, and getting support and figuring out the formula to success for yourself is at the outset is, I think, a game changer.
What was that formula for you?
Well, I literally sat down with Christina and I was like, talk to me about my breakfast options. Talk to me about my lunch options. Like, what should I do for this? And then at our check-ins, I'd be like, I was pretty low energy after this, this, and this. She's like, okay, add a handful of this. Like, really held my hand through it.
Yeah, that's great.
Yeah.
So you made the changes to your training. So you trained 3 times a week, and you were also walking. What was your walking goal?
Yeah, we did 8,000 steps a day.
Right. Okay. Which is probably easy for you if you're coaching
You
classes.
would think, okay, on the days that I teach, yes, but
Yeah.
on the off days, like, I was born and raised in Miami, guys. Like, I am very heavy car culture. Like, if I have a choice to drive somewhere or walk somewhere, I will always drive with the music and the windows down.
Yep.
So that was a big shift for me to be like, no, plan ahead and figure out how to walk to class and back, or walk, it was probably the hardest habit to learn for
Really?
me. Yeah.
Yeah, I've noticed that too. Like, because you have an Apple Watch or something.
Yeah.
Yeah. So you track your steps, and you're like, wow, I only get like 4,000 steps
Yes,
a day.
3 to 4 if
Yeah.
I'm not thinking.
Yeah. So you have to like, okay, I'm going to go for a 30-minute walk after dinner, or, I'm going to walk to work or whatever. Yeah. And that makes a huge difference.
It really does. It's probably the lowest hanging fruit, I would say. And like in terms of habit building, I remember it was raining. It was before daylight, so it was dark and rainy early. So I felt like a college student, like cramming my steps in at the end of the day to meet my goal. I was like, okay, something's not working. Obviously, this is not how I'm supposed to add the habit to my life by stress walking at 6:30 p.m. in the rain. So what do I need to change here, right? And like zoomed back out and figured out how to create habits and routines that would help me get to those steps in a way that was sustainable, where I wouldn't need to be tracking it. I would know, okay, if I go do this and this, this, and this, I will hit that goal and make that part of my lifestyle.
I'm getting this theme of like, you're kind of like a systems oriented person.
Correct.
Yeah. Yeah.
Yeah.
Like you say, okay, I'm going to try this thing, and it might work, it might not work. And if it doesn't work, then you kind of take a step back, you evaluate it, you create a new system. Mm-hmm. Is that just always how you've been?
Yeah,
or?
I think it's just how I've been. It's how I've been in my work. And that's kind of how I've approached this little experiment we've been doing here for the last couple of months, is like, if I approach this how I would a job, how will it feel different in my life?
Yeah. Yeah. So it kind of allows you to not like get down on yourself if things don't go the way you want them to go.
Yeah, but also like to really help myself so it's not stressful.
Yeah. Yeah.
Like it should be enjoyable. Like I approach the studio the same way. I'm like, if something's not working for a reason.
Yeah. How do you, yeah. I mean, I love this. I'm exactly the same way.
Okay.
Right. That's why I noticed it.
What's your sign? Let's go there.
What am I?
When's your birthday?
Aquarius?
Oh.
Aquarius. Does that mean something? I don't know.
Well, we'll need to look at what time you were born. I'm not this woo-woo, but we need to find out your rising too. I'm a Libra, which I think explains a lot of what you're seeing.
Right. Okay. I would say that, one of the things for me, I've noticed that if I don't look at things like an experiment, then I tend to beat myself up about things. It's just like, oh, you said you were going to do this, you didn't do it. And I sort of like, I'll get down on myself, like, oh man, you said you would, whatever, like hit your macros, or like not, do 30 days of this thing, and you slipped up. Mm-hmm. Rather than if I beat myself up about it, then it makes it harder for me to get back on. But if I take a step back and say, that's interesting. I went to hang out with my friend, and he, offered me a bunch of food that wasn't on my list, and I couldn't resist it. So do I avoid hanging out with that friend? Mm-hmm. Do I eat more ahead of time so I'm not hungry?
Right.
Do I tell him? Like, it makes it more like a puzzle to solve, rather than, sort of some referendum about like your level of discipline.
Right. Yeah. I think about that a lot too. And that's something that came up. My friend had a divorce party, and it was in the first 30 days. And I was like, I'm not going to be a wet blanket and tell her I'm not going to have her cake. I'm just going to be really quiet about this and not have her cake.
Yeah.
But that was hard.
Yeah.
Like that was hard. I was like, I remember had a moment sitting, and I had to think about like Christina and all of you guys. And I was just like, I want to be able to go in there next week and tell them like I stuck to it. And I just like looked at this cake with a picture of Eddie Vedder's face on it and a Barbie that was supposed to be her. And I was like, that looks delicious, and I'm not going to eat this.
Yeah.
which
Yeah.
is really hard. And I think if it weren't in the 30 days, I would have absolutely had some.
Yeah.
But I think it's also part of learning that, like those parameters, to be a little bit gentle with yourself, because social gatherings and social meals are part of life and have to be incorporated into the week instead
Yeah.
of the day.
Yeah.
And I'm still figuring that out. Like, I canceled so many plans when I committed to no excuses, because I looked at my calendar. I was like, I'm having drinks with that friend. I'm going out to dinner with that friend. And I'm going to convert all of these to walks
Yeah.
now.
Yeah.
And now it's kind of at a stage where it's coming back in, it's creeping back in, and you can see it be a slippery slope. So I think it's exactly what you said, which is like, how do you make sense of it in a way that won't make you be really hard on yourself, but
Yeah.
keep you on a track that feels sustainable?
Yeah. I love this. I love this so much. So, you know, I think people think this is really hard. And I think it can be hard in the moment. But if you are spending the time to really think through, like, if you're doing a 30-day challenge or 8 weeks, whatever, what does that next 8 weeks look like? And what am I willing to sort of give up to achieve this thing? And as a result, I'm just looking at some of your numbers over the course of this 8 weeks. You made tremendous progress. Like, you had this goal of kind of getting your body back. You lost 4% body fat in just 6 weeks. And it's not like you had a ton of body fat to lose. You lost 4% body fat. You lost 9.3 pounds of body fat.
Wait, more, 11 point something of body
Okay.
fat.
I'm going to have old numbers here.
Okay, I'm just saying.
But you also gained 1 pound of muscle in 8 weeks. That is incredible. I don't know if you recognize how incredible
I don't
that
have a
is.
sense of it. And, I think I have trouble sometimes, like, owning the numbers and stuff because of how toxic it can be for so many people. But I am proud of this. Like, that's what I came here to do.
Yeah.
And I think measuring progress and looking at the time in which you can accomplish that, if that's a goal of yours, like, that feels really good and is something to celebrate.
Yeah.
I try to. I told myself the last open aligned with the end of my 8 weeks, and I was like, this is a party for me. Nobody here knows.
I love that. Well, the thing with these numbers is when you overly focus on the numbers, then they can be toxic.
Yeah.
But if you focus on the process, then the numbers follow. And it just sounds like, based on what you've done, you really focused on the process. Like, I'm going to do this 30 days. I'm going to do this 8 weeks. I'm going to go all in on it. I'm not going to make any excuses. And I'm not going to make it mean anything, whatever happens at the end. I just know that I did it.
Yeah, totally. And I did break one rule. And I told Christina, I was like, I'm not weighing myself every day. I'm not doing it. I can't.
Yeah.
I'll try as much as I can. I will do all the scans here.
Yep.
And whatever you need. But
Baby steps.
Yeah, I can't do that yet.
Yeah. Well, I mean, this is the thing, though. So you're a couple other numbers here. So you gain 1 pound of muscle. You reduced your BMR, which is basically your risk of, like, cardiovascular disease. So there's just a number between 1 and 20 that we have there. So you went from 14 to 11, which means you have less fat around your organs. This means you're going to be healthier going forward. That's a pretty big change in just 8 weeks.
Is it? I don't know much about it. I learned about this with Christina.
Yeah. It's a pretty big change. And it's like, a lot of times people can be unhealthy, but not look at outwardly. And to reduce that risk by basically 25% in the course of 8 weeks is pretty big. Yeah. And then it's funny because you lost weight, but also your base, like, caloric intake went up.
Oh.
Right.
Oh, right,
so
right,
like,
right.
because you gain muscle, like, you can actually eat more.
Right.
Which is the opposite of what normally happens when people lose weight. It's like you lose weight and you lose muscle, but you lost fat and you gain muscle. So that means you can actually eat more even at a lower body weight. This is one of the reasons why diets don't work, is because people lose a bunch of weight and then their base caloric intake. So I don't know exactly what yours is, but let's say it's like 1,500 calories or something, right? Like, that's what it takes for you to just survive without any movement.
Right.
Right. Well, if you lose 10 pounds, that number might drop to 1,400. But then if you still keep eating 1,500, then you end up putting the weight back on. Does that make sense?
Totally. I mean, and what you're explaining, and so much of what Christina taught me through this process, like, The science behind it is so cool to me. And like all of that knowledge that you share and that like everything you're talking about right now, like to the layperson, it's like, what? I don't understand.
Yeah,
I don't
exactly.
know. And that's kind of, I think being able to sit back and not be in charge of that, which is a theme, right? Like I have 3 children. I own my own business.
Yeah. You're in charge of a lot of things.
I'm in charge of a lot of things.
Yeah.
So to come in here and not be in charge and be told what to do and how to do it, like what a gift, you know? Because I was learning something every single time, whether it's like a specific movement in the gym that I had never done before but was interested in learning, or exactly what you're just describing right now about calories and visceral fat and how it all comes together and can take you farther down the path toward your goal.
Yeah. And that's the thing. Like, it took me a long time to learn this stuff. I mean, I've run a gym for 15 years now, and I had to go through the whole process myself because I would go and look for people that knew what was going on. And most people in this industry are not trained to, to teach you this kind of stuff. And once I figured it out, it was like, oh my God, is this like secret, like that everyone needs to know? And I would try to share everything. And people were like, you know, their eyes just roll back and they're like not interested. So then we kind of broke it down to like, how about just, you know, lift weights and eat more protein? And then we'll see, you know, how that kind of plays out.
Yeah.
And that's like exactly what's sort of happened.
Yeah.
Right. You went from, your back squat went from 10 pounds to 90 pounds. Your deadlift went from 50 pounds to 135 pounds. And that is with you having like this back injury right in the middle. That's pretty big. And, you know, I will just say, I'm not going to, you know, say how much you weigh. It's not like you were, you know, very big and strong or like, you know, had a bunch of fat, you know, so for you to lose weight and gain strength during this is like a pretty big deal. Yeah. And I know you feel that, right?
Well, I don't have a lot of the context, but I can feel it in my body, you know?
Yeah.
And like we just did baseline the other day again, and it's like 2 minutes less. Like that, there's something there to follow. And I do feel it. I do feel it in my body every day.
Yeah. So I will say this is tremendous progress in 8 weeks. And I think it's a testament to you really focusing on the process. Because I think like you said, if you weigh yourself every day and you overly focus on the weight, maybe not so much progress because you'd have one day where things didn't look the way you wanted it to look and you start getting frustrated and wondering if this is all worth it.
Yeah.
Yeah. What are you most proud of accomplishing in the sort of 3 months that you've been here?
Oh my gosh, it's so hard to pick one thing, but I'll put my parenting hat on here. When I first meal prepped what I thought would be enough food for myself for a week, I didn't really anticipate that my whole family would be into this, and it was gone in 2 days. And so that was a good data point for me. I was like, oh. So just being able to share some of the knowledge I'm learning here with my kids, with my family, hearing my like 8-year-old talk about chemicals and processed food, but not in a way that's making him like hyper scared. Like he's a kid in America. He's going to reach for the bright colored foods at the checkout line, which we can do a whole nother podcast about, Jay. I have a lot of feelings about that. But I'm really proud of the impact it's having on the people around me. That is, you know, as a parent and a mom of 3, that has been a really wonderful unintended consequence of this process to see the positive impact on them.
Yeah. Have you noticed any changes in your sort of energy, mood, sleep, anything like that?
Oh, yeah, absolutely. All of it. So much more energy. I know that novelty plays a big role in that. So doing new things in life, I think, brings a lot of energy. But I do think it's directly linked to the nutrition. I don't want those things as much. The things that I cut out during No Excuses, like they're really not back in my life very much. Like I love a chocolate chip cookie. I will always enjoy one.
Yeah.
But a lot of those foods are just not in the rotation. I think it was around week 2. I remember going to teach my dance cardio class and I felt like I was flying.
Yeah.
Because it was like after you get all that crap out of your body, like, and stop eating a lot of those foods that aren't good for you, the energy shift was just huge.
Yeah.
I think it was like riding a high of all the things I was starting to do, plus the novelty, plus not eating so much sugar, honestly.
Yeah. And it takes a few weeks to get there.
Yeah.
Yeah. Now, that said, you still like allow yourself to have a piece of cake every now and then.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah, of course. I'm there.
Right. Especially if it has, Barbie theme and stuff. Okay. So I guess if you're talking to someone like yourself, right, rewind 3 months, what advice would you give for someone like you who is kind of on the fence, not really sure if this is the right thing for them? Like, what would you tell them?
Just try. Like, try it. Give yourself a little deadline. Not to make it stressful or full of pressure, but just to keep yourself moving toward it, like without excuses. And mental preparation. I think that would be helpful. Like being able to mentally prepare to do something like this and stick with it and put whatever support in place you need, whether it's like a person. I had one friend that I like downloaded to about this all throughout the process.
Yeah.
That was really helpful because I knew it was going to be up and down. I knew there were going to be good days and bad days. And yeah, having a good support system and putting in the mental preparation work before just showing up or starting makes a big difference.
Yeah, I love that. What's next for you?
Oh my gosh, great question.
Or what is your next goal, I should say?
I think my goals are kind of the same. Like, I think it's still pretty early in the process. I want to keep doing what I'm doing, but more sustainably. I want to keep getting stronger in my body. I think I've always been like, even if I was not overweight, I was soft, And so that's a big goal of mine, is to like be stronger, be able to physically do things like put luggage in the overhead compartment without pulling a muscle.
Right. Climb a rope.
That'd be nice. Maybe climb a rope.
Yeah.
Okay. Maybe I'll get to the top one day.
We're doing that today, by the way. So.
Oh, shoot. Speaking of mental preparation,
get the
totally
camera.
forgot to check my...
Get the camera ready. Today's the day.
Go warm up. I don't know. I think just more of this. Like, I'm not going anywhere. I'm going to keep doing this, and I'm really excited to have it be part of the routine.
Yeah, love it. Awesome. Well, Geeti, I really appreciate the time that you spent with us today. I think there's so many things in here, and I could dig in for hours on some of this stuff. There's so many ways that you approach this that I just really, really appreciate. It's just like it's not as hard as people think if you have the right mindset going into it. And when you start seeing progress, it just motivates you to keep doing more. Mm-hmm. And like, ultimately, I see you as somebody who really sets the example of what that mindset can be. So I really appreciate you sharing that.
Thank you. Yeah. Thanks for making this place. It's been an awesome place to learn and try new things.
Yeah. And also, I remember now the first time we talked, we were going to go take a dance class.
Oh my gosh,
with you.
That's right.
Yeah. So
you told me the whole staff was coming. Where are you guys?
We're going to do that. Okay. I'm going to organize that.
Okay.
And we'll come in. And yeah, I know Esther's really looking forward to that.
Okay, great. Yeah. We should look at the calendar.
Yeah. All right.
See, set a deadline.
Yes, exactly. All right. Excellent. We'll see you next time.
Okay.
Bye.
Bye.
Thanks for tuning in. If you like this episode, we've got plenty of others. Go check out this one over here.